of success. That means he gets to keep playing the Zoo Warlock deck that's been giving him a lot of success. So we are going to jump into game number 1 of the Grand Finals. It's EdwardElric versus Handsomeguy, and it looks like it's Dragon Temple Warrior versus Cthulhu Druid.
Yep, and this is the one deck that I have been fearing for EdwardElric might not perform fantastically well. He picks up a dragon right away, though. He didn't have that in his opening hand, but now he's got a blazing fast start. But Handsomeguy got a copy of Wild Growth. He's also got the Innervate. You're looking at fantastic starting hands for both players. Looking like EdwardElric might need to pick up an Execute in this game at some point, but a second Alex Ross as champion, already down to 21 on turn 2.
We saw yesterday EdwardElric take a turn 6 victory against a Reno Warlock. Now, Handsomeguy not going to really be damaging himself with his hero power, and he does have Innervate to try and get out one of these big taunts a little more early than he normally would. But that's still a lot of damage, and EdwardElric has those tempo tools in his hand. He's got Blackwing Corruptor, Frothing Berserker. If that comes down on the board, it isn't challenged right away. It can get huge and pose a big threat to the Druid.
Yeah, this is something I kind of want to mention right away in this one, too. We've seen Handsomeguy play so quickly throughout this top 8. But you saw him immediately go into his turn with a couple of decisions, and he took his hands off the mouse. He just sat there with his arms crossed and decided to contemplate what his next move was.
Yeah.
This is such a paramount thing to his success right now. We heard Savitz mention it. He's going to need to stay calm and not get ahead of himself. So he goes with the Fandral, gets checked by that slam, and the Hunter hero power picked up from that Finley. This is a lot of damage, but is he going to be able to get through this massive taunt wall that's coming?
Yeah, it shows a lot of discipline. You know, a lot of players might be afraid when they see themselves already at 21 health that early on in the game, and they think, I need to innervate out a taunt right now. Handsomeguy realized his curve said, you know what, let's play a little bit differently. We can innervate out Ancient War next turn and then follow it up with a Dark Arakoa and really get those walls going. So really impressive stuff so far.
Yeah, this Frothing Berserker is going to get quite big, but Ancient of War is just threatening so much value right now. And as you said, backing it up with that Dark Arakoa. If EdwardElric picks up an Execute, he may have a pretty easy time getting through this, but that swipe even going to buy more value here. I mean, the Dark Arakoa was great, but keeping that health on your Ancient of War, taking care of the Frothing Berserker and the Slime token, this is a lot of potential here. And if he cuts down that Alex Ross as champion on the attack, it means Execute's got even less value.
Yeah. Yeah, being able to clear the board at any stage against any type of tempo deck, especially Temple Warriors, and especially the Dragon variant of Temple Warrior, usually spells the end of, you know, that big push. And a lot of times that's when the Temple Warrior starts to fall and starts to falter. At the moment, look at EdwardElric's best play. It's the Blackwing Corruptor, probably the face, because it already trades well with this Ancient of War.
Yeah, I mean, just the early game was stifled. He got off to a blistering start, but Wild Growth and Innervate has quickly brought that to an end. So Handsomeguy. Now, the one thing that EdwardElric has going for him is that Handsomeguy hasn't really pushed a lot of damage yet, and this is where he's going to turn up the heat. Start pushing 5 to face, and he's got to get going. He's under the pressure of that Hunter hero power, and he knows that at any point an Execute could easily turn this into a scary game. So starting the damage right now, certainly the right play.
Yeah, but just technically good play getting the damage in now. You know that you didn't see an Execute in the previous turns when your opponent had mana to use it. And you know that your opponent is going to make the trade anyway, knowing their deck. So really great stuff from Handsomeguy so far. And looks like he is in the situation where he might run away with game number 1.
Yeah, there's that Execute picked up, but it's only worth 3 damage effectively on that Dark Arakoa right now. So Blackwing Corruptor looking way better at the moment. And 2 cards picked up because that Brand and Azure Drake. This board is going to continue to get squashed. And at 14, Edward needs to pick up just a little bit more damage and maybe a Grom activator. And that could be his ticket to winning this. He's still at 24, so he's got a little bit of time left.
Yeah. And he's thinking about Azure Drake, but this is what Handsomeguy does. He realizes that, you know what, I already have the spell power on the board. Do I really need to play Azure Drake this turn? Why not just get my Cthulhu buffed up, get the Cloxy Amberweaver online, build a wider board, which makes it tougher for the Temple Warrior to deal with, and keep pushing this damage, and that's exactly what he does.
Yep, I mean, you're looking at 2 turns to kill EdwardElric right now. So second Execute, he needed these early. They'll buy him some more time here. but now he's going to be out of cards. I mean, he's got Grom left on the back end of this.
I mean, we're a Grom activator and maybe 2 steady shots away from EdwardElric actually closing it out. If he picks up a Blood to Ichor and is able to fit in those hero powers, we might be seeing a very different game. We started saying, well, Handsomeguy, he's got this in the bag, but EdwardElric, that early damage coupled with the steady shot being gained from the Sir Finley Murgleton, it's a pretty big deal.
Oh, Fiery War Axe gets drawn, and that's 6 damage over 2 turns. That actually is
plus the Grom.
Yeah, that's actually representing lethal damage, I believe. He's got 9 damage next turn. Handsomeguy needs to find a taunt or somehow lethal this turn.
Oh my. There's no way he can find lethal. He nourishes. He's only got 5 mana left. There's no way. Even if he picks up multiple, he only has 1 innervate left in the deck.
Dark Arakoa, he can't cast that.
Oh no.
That amount of mana.
Is he dead?
He's dead. If he would have used the Wild Growth instead of the Nourish, he would have found Dark Arakoa and had a taunt this turn. Instead, he went for 3 extra draws. Grom is EdwardElric's last card, and he's going to take a quick game number 1.
How? That's all I can say. I mean, the early damage really mattered. EdwardElric, even though he had a lull in the mid game, even though he had to get through multiple taunts without executes, he still managed to do it, and he still managed to find a way to win the game. And that's a brutal loss from Handsomeguy. You feel like you're ahead that whole game. You look back, you think, could I have gained life at any point?
The final card for EdwardElric in that one, and so here we go.
Yep. Going into game number 2 here. It's Warlock versus Warlock, the good old Zoo versus Zoo. And you mentioned Handsomeguy has to fight from behind, but that's what he's done the entire tournament so far.
And that is not a good opening hand for EdwardElric. No 1-drop in this matchup means that Handsomeguy going to be able to take this board first.
Yeah, and a sick curve for Handsomeguy. Having 4 1-drops in his opening hand, plus the ultimate curve bender in the Forbidden Ritual.
Yeah, Possessed Villager going to be added first. Knows that if he picks up Abusive Sergeant, that it's a better body to trade with than that Voidwalker would be. So Dark Peddler only play available for EdwardElric here, and normally you're pretty happy to see Power Overwhelming, but when you're this far behind on board, you're going to want some Mortal Coil, Elven Archer, those kind of things come to mind.
Yeah, you need bodies in this situation.
Oh, Direwolf Alpha is going to allow the trade. And look at the board state. I mean, Zoo does not have a lot of ways to come back from behind in these situations. It is kind of do or die. You need to take the board or just lose afterwards. Yeah. So Possessed Villager, pretty solid pickup, but I think Handsomeguy is almost free to ignore it at this point. He picks up Knife Juggler even. Going to be able to add Voidwalker behind this. Doesn't even want to see where this... does want to see where the juggle goes. I was about to say doesn't even want to see it. Direwolf Alpha pushes 2 more damage.
He's at 15.
Man, look, he's no way to recover from this. Sea Giant comes down, but this might be too little too late. We're looking at 5, 7, 11 damage on board and a Sea Giant of his own.
Yeah, and if he picks up a burst spell here, then he might have even been able to end the game.
Maybe a bit of missequencing here from Handsomeguy. I would have liked to see that Sea Giant come down. He knows he's going to play it this turn, but if that juggle hits the 2-1, he actually doesn't have the mana to play this anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only a 25% chance that it hits that. If it hits the Possessed Villager, the Shadow Beast will still spawn and they'll still have enough. So I love this play from Handsomeguy, as you mentioned. And whoa, EdwardElric goes ahead and concedes. Game 2 is already over.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame him for the concession there. There's no way to recover that Warrior build. And I don't know about this. It's going to be tough. I mean, these games are going to come down to really who takes the board, it feels like. It's going to be Cthulhu Druid versus Shaman. And I know from experience that this can be a really tough one for the Druid. He's got turn 1 Living Roots into that Wild Growth, and even a couple minions to play afterwards. But EdwardElric has that dangerous opener. He's got Sir Finley Murgleton to challenge these saplings, and also a Tunnel Trog. We'll see what order he wants to go with this in. You know, it's not automatic to coin out the Tunnel Trog here. Maybe he wants to preserve its life in particular. And so this Wild Growth from Handsomeguy means that he's going to be able to play the Tunnel Trog and coin the Totem Golem if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
The Tunnel Trog's pretty safe after that.
Yeah, the tech cards that you mentioned that are in EdwardElric's deck are Crazed Alchemist, which is not something we usually see in a Shaman deck, and also Elemental Destruction. So 2 cards that are definitely good in those board-centric matchups, but maybe not as good against a Cthulhu Druid. We'll have to see. Another card that is Earthshock, which actually can be really good against Druid because of cards like Ancient of War, and even if you want to push more damage against a big taunt wall.
Look at this turn from EdwardElric. He's got a way to clear this Claxy Emberweaver and push a little bit of damage. That would cost him quite a bit, so we'll see how he wants to tackle this. This is not the easiest one in the world.
No, not at all. And it looks like Abusive Sergeant. You know, just trading for the board as much as possible is definitely seems like the right call. But the thing is, you don't want to play too much into swipe, especially since you're going into turn 4. You want to keep your stronger minions healthy. That's exactly what EdwardElric is going to do. He's going to sort of spread the wealth across the board. And Handsomeguy doesn't have the swipe, but he does have a Druid of the Claw, so that's going to block some damage, especially after seeing an Abusive Sergeant. He might be more confident in putting this in top mode instead of like maybe charging it into one of these minions to try and wrestle control of the board.
Yeah, going to innervate out this this hero power as well to take out that Abusive Sergeant. If not, Barrel Spirit, Ancestral Knowledge, a lot of cards would allow that Tunnel Trog to trade up with that Abusive Sergeant. So like the play from him, and Lava Shock to pick up for EdwardElric. That's going to let that Tunnel Trog trade in, push 3 more damage, and unlock that mana that he just locked up from that Overload.
Yeah, that's a really nice pickup for EdwardElric. Being able to just have your full mana and sort of going into a place where you have a little bit of card advantage. And Handsomeguy, not the cleanest of turns. He can remove this Totem Golem, but it's not really that clean. So I like just going ahead and playing the Claxy Amberweaver, even though now it's both of them gone and you don't get the effect. It does challenge the board in a much cleaner way than, say, using like Wrath for 3 in a Hero Power or Wrath for 3 in a Disciple of Cthulhu.
Yep, hasn't been under a ton of pressure, but now he's going to be under pressure. A Doomhammer gets picked up. You can kind of see Handsomeguy shift in his chair there on that Doomhammer. You know, this Totem Golem really wasn't presenting that big of a problem. It was going to be another 3 damage, but now he's looking at that extra 12 left behind over the next 3 turns. And with the burn EdwardElric has in his hand, he may be pretty close to locking this one up. I mean, he's even got the Shapeshift to make it more damage on the Doomhammer in the coming turns.
Yeah. Yep. It's looking pretty grim for Handsomeguy because he doesn't have any taunts. He does have ways to draw a little bit if he wants to use this Wrath to cycle, maybe not this turn, but in the coming turns. And that's pretty much what he's going to have to find, because he's not even close to putting out enough damage to threaten lethal anytime soon against EdwardElric Shaman.
Yeah, he certainly is going to need to pick up some of that taunt wall right now. That card is pretty dead at the moment, but EdwardElric can just kind of continue to force trades by representing that extra damage on board, buy himself some more time, and as long as he's got time, he's got plenty of damage.
That Flame Juggler to face actually might be a huge deal. At the moment, EdwardElric was going to be 1 damage off from a 2-turn lethal had Handsomeguy shape-shifted this turn.
Oh gosh, you're right.
But what that Flame Juggler to the face did was shorten that clock by an entire turn so that he can shapeshift next turn and Lava Burst. So Handsomeguy, I don't even know what he can pick up from this Wrath. I don't think there's anything in his deck that's going to help him survive through the Doomhammer with Shapeshift and Lava Burst.
He's got to draw a card into Dark Arakoa. This is his only option. He spotted it. And that's not it.
Ugh.
And with that, he knows the writing's on the wall. I mean, just look at his body language right now. He knows he's dead.
Yeah, and not really much he can do. I like the fact that he fits in the hero power here to try and get his health a little bit out of range. He really doesn't need to Wrath that Flame Juggler. But this is going to be EdwardElric taking a very decisive win with that aggressive Shaman, with a little help from Flame Juggler as well.
Yeah, I mean, that honestly, it really wasn't. Well, it wouldn't have been a big deal at the end of the day. Because as you know, if Shamans have 1 Lava Burst, they're bound to draw a second one. Just the damage is so real from this deck. And Handsomeguy, I'm just looking at this and going, what happened?
Yeah, EdwardElric's just going to show him, yeah, I had it all.
Well, you didn't ban Shaman is what happened. We've seen it banned a lot this event.
Yeah.
But having the respect for that Freeze Mage play from EdwardElric.
Guy is down, but he's been down in every series that he's won so far. He's bullied Reno Lock in most of them, but EdwardElric doesn't have that deck. He's got a Zoo Warlock deck, and that's what he's going to be playing for game number 4.
Yeah, honestly, one of the big keys to Handsomeguy's success so far has been such a strong lineup versus Reno Lock. You know, he said he'd won 7 games versus it in his sets so far. But the Zoo deck presents some real problems for Rogue at times. I mean, just look at the hand from Handsomeguy. Can he afford to keep any of these cards right now?
Maybe Deadly Poison. Shadow Strike is also one of the cleanest ways to deal with Darkshire Councilman, which, as it stands normally, it can be a pretty tough card for Rogue to deal with without spending multiple resources. So they are good cards to have, but are they good cards to keep in a mulligan? And I don't know if the answer is yes, but he does decide to keep the Shadow Strike.
The two he picked up are not welcome draws.
No.
Leroy Jenkins, you almost never want to draw it in this matchup until the final turn. And Azure Drake is not active for a long time. Handsomeguy's mulligan may leave him a little bit stranded here.
Yeah. EdwardElric, though, Sea Giant, not necessarily that. Oh, wow.
Woo.
Oh, boy.
This is one of the strongest starts from Zoo. And you can see EdwardElric has to kind of have a bunch of disrespect for the idea of Backstab and SI7 Agent. Those aren't really cards that Zoo can play around. And so this is when they get rewarded, is when those cards aren't in the Rogue's opening hand.
Yeah.
The Zoo has plenty of early game threats. There's only a few early game answers.
Yeah, Zoo is a deck that really you don't have to have respect. In fact, usually it's better to play Zoo Warlock in the most disrespectful way possible. You're the one who asks the questions, and you're forcing your opponent to have the answers, or you run away with the game. That's how Zoo Warlock operates, and that's how it's most successful. So usually, yeah, there's very few matchups as Zoo where you want to play conservatively, and this definitely is not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of it's like one of those quiz shows where you're trying to stump the other guy, and sometimes they just don't have the answer. When they do have the answer, fair enough, you got me.
Yeah.
But there's that Darkshire Councilman. This is what the Shadow Strike was kept for. And so that Deadly Poison, going to drop Handsomeguy down to 17 here. But he's starting to get control of this board. I mean, he's a possessed villager, and this Forbidden Ritual away from doing it.
Yeah, but we're going into a 4-mana turn. We're going into turn 4, which is not very much mana for a Rogue to do anything with no Phantom Knight.
Oh, wow. That is a huge draw right now, TJ. These 1/1s would have added so much damage to this board. And instead, it's going to be tap for EdwardElric and reload with that Imp Gang boss. But this is where we start to get into the really dangerous spots for Zoo. If he's not going to be able to close this damage, he may not be able to win this game. And Azure Drake hits the board now. And Defender Vargas.
Leroy Jenkins.
The damage is so real right now.
Yeah.
Direwolf Alpha. Defender of Vargas. Going to fortify this board state. Where does he want to place it, though?
It's tough because the Direwolf Alpha makes things a little bit weird. And that was a mistake. I think he wanted to play the Defender Vargas first to taunt up those, and then play the Direwolf Alpha afterwards.
Yeah, can't get full value from Defender Vargas and Direwolf Alpha. It's just a matter of where the buffs drop.
Yeah.
So obviously you'd like to see Direwolf Alpha not die to a direct attack. But Handsomeguy's down to 10.
Yeah, I mean, he can clean up things with Preparation Eviscerate, but Leroy Jenkins is such a huge card in this matchup. I've actually seen players in Zoo go as far as keep Leroy Jenkins in an opener if they have good cards to go along with it. Like if they have 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop.
This is the big turn. Preparation, this Eviscerate. That takes out the Imp Gang boss. 4 powers left behind. Handsomeguy has to clear some more of this power. He's going to add SI7 Agent to this board to make sure that's happened. And there's the big Van Cleef. Can he close this game next turn with Leroy Jenkins and Eviscerate in hand? If that Azure Drake lives, that's another 11 total damage. 10, 13, 17. I mean, if EdwardElric doesn't close this game, Handsomeguy may have this.
Yeah, and Voidwalker's not going to stop enough. And he's going to go with Voidwalker Sea Giant, it seems, and I think that means Handsomeguy wins.
That's it. I mean, that is not enough to sustain against this.
Wow.
SI7 Agent takes out that Voidwalker, and Leroy and Eviscerate end this game with that 10-10 Edwin Van Cleef. That preparation was such an important draw for Handsomeguy last turn.
Yeah, and that's a really big win, because nowadays, Rogue is not really considered to be a favorite in this matchup. Zoo swarm, they overwhelm. Rogues have a lack of Blade Flurry now, which they might be thinking in his head, wow, that was a mistake. Maybe I could have won that match if I played it differently. But those are things that you can't let stay in your head when you're moving forward. Reset your mind, focus on the match.
Yeah, this is a big one for Handsomeguy here, too. In this matchup, if the Druid can kind of check everything the Zoo Warlock does, they're usually in pretty fantastic shape. He's got turn 1 Living Roots. We'll see how he wants to use this one. I mean, the 1/1s are so good. But EdwardElric has the hand that punishes this opening play.
Yeah.
That bot lane duo with Flame Imp and Voidwalker.
Indeed. Zoo is a deck that you can always expect to get a win at some point in these Conquest best of sevens. And I'm surprised that it hasn't got a win yet. It seems like Handsomeguy is sort of stealing wins from right under it.
See, now you say that, but I've had my share of reverse sweeps on the back of
I've seen him.
Warlock.
I've seen him. Don't you worry, Admirable.
So Voidwalker gets cleared here. It's going to add Knife Juggler, and Disciple of Cthulhu can check that. But Handsomeguy's lacking turn 4 and turn 5 action at the moment. His next 2 draws are going to need to help this out. And that Wild Growth will give him something to do on turn 4 if he doesn't pick up anything else. But this is going to be Imp Gang Boss out of the board. And it looks like the Disciple's going to get some excellent value here.
Yeah, definitely. Being able to trade up into a Flame Imp. And you know what? Handsomeguy, if he can get the mana to do it, he's rolling into some really powerful turns.
Yep.
Even though Cloxy Amberweaver is screaming at you as a turn 4 play, it might even be better to Wild Growth, but you can't really pass up the 4/5
It's
body.
really tough to pass that up. I mean, just look at the way it's challenging.
Yeah.
That Imp Gang Boss right now. You have the Wild Growth and Hero Power next turn into Dark Arakoa or Ancient of War.
And that's pretty much not a dead draw from EdwardElric, but look at that clunky hand. Power Overwhelming, Sea Giant, Darkshire Councilman.
Yep.
Those are not 3 cards that you want as your only 3 cards in your hand.
Yeah, and EdwardElric kind of forced to protect here with those 2 Abusive Sergeant. I mean, they would just, the board would get eaten up if you left that Cloxy Amberweaver alive. So just going to play another one. I mean, when you see your opponent struggle that much to deal with the first one, why not play a second? And Imp Gang Boss here, I would like to see EdwardElric think about this a little bit more because Darkshire Councilman can quickly build up. It represents a significant threat. If he chooses to go with that Darkshire Councilman first, what's the payoff of that? I mean, that was a big turn for him, and he took almost no time deciding.
Yeah. Handsomeguy. It's kind of funny. All the Cloxy Amberweavers he's played this far this series, all 4 of them have been 4/5s. Taking me back to the days, Admirable, when Chillwind Yeti was an auto-include. Back when Innervate Chillwind Yeti was the
Premier play.
The scariest thing on the face of the planet. Nowadays, we got 4 mana 7/7s, not just 4 mana 4/5s.
You know, I actually remember I was playing against Doa. This was during the beta, and he went on a show, like a podcast, talking about Hearthstone, and he had mentioned that he had seen someone innervate Chillwind Yeti on turn 1, and I was like, that was me. I remember that. Twin Emperor is activated here. Sea Giant's certainly still a scary card in this board state, but there is a lot of taunts in Handsomeguy's hand. I'm not sure that he's really fearing this. He's just kind of putting up the Great Wall of Handsomeguy right now.
Yeah. That's a good one. But yeah, I mean, EdwardElric is just whipping through his turns, and maybe the last team got to him a little bit, but he does have a really strong board. It is very intimidating. Sea Giant plus Darkshire Councilman. There's a lot of threats that need to be answered. And, you know, Handsomeguy does have ways to deal with it. He does have ways to keep that taunt going. But EdwardElric has to decide if he wants to try and trade in here.
Yeah, once again, he played his turn very quickly. If he'd attacked that Dark Arakoa, there wouldn't be a direct challenge to that Darkshire Councilman. It would occupy some more resources from Handsomeguy. Now that Dark Arakoa is just sitting there, and look at this, even considering the trade here to buff up that Darkshire Councilman so that the Dark Arakoa doesn't have that clean trade.
Yeah, and, you know, that's a really solid play. And, you know, that's what happens when you sort of take your time. And now the trades are just pretty tough for Handsomeguy. He can trade into Sea Giant and trade into the Darkshire Councilman. Then he's left with no board to EdwardElric's board. You could Ancient of War to try and bridge that gap a little bit more.
Yeah, that's his last taunt in hand, though. I mean, he's used 3 taunts already. And so, looking at his deck list, there's only 1 copy of Ancient War in here, and he's only got 1 copy of Druid of the Claw, so he's got 2 taunts left after this. He needs to make the most of this board, and very quickly. And that Sea Giant, you know, you trade over it, and EdwardElric has a power overwhelming, and Ancient War is going to fall, and then you're kind of in that race position again. So, looks like it's just going to be Brand, Twilight Elder, and start value trading.
I love the value trades here because you realize that if you just start trading off the board like a big thing for a big thing, you're going to get whittled down by all the small stuff that's going to get through. And like you mentioned, 1 Power Overwhelming could swing the game. But now Power Overwhelming isn't that big of a deal. You still have a way to challenge the Sea Giant should things go terribly wrong. Oh my goodness!
And that Dart Peddler.
This could be really
shots. Big. I mean, he's already seen both abusive sergeants, rather. That Voidwalker just trying to buy time. There's a Soulfire picked up. Let's see where this goes. I mean, Voidwalker Soulfire is looking pretty decent right now. The issue I see here is whether or not EdwardElric thinks he can still grind this game out, or if he needs to play for damage. And if he's Soulfire in the 4-3...
Well, he got rid of the Voidwalker, so now he doesn't have a play. He's got to tap. I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. Darkshire Councilman is great to have. Picks up another Soulfire.
Yeah, but this is going to spell damage for him. We'll see where this goes. Wrath is such a good pickup right now. That Fandral and Wrath going to clean out that Sea Giant. And this is going to be bye-bye to basically the rest of this board. Handsomeguy's going to draw another card. Mirekeeper's no help this turn, but that Fandral's looking like it may live. And if it lives, that's a 10-10 Ancient of War.
But he's at 10 health. Or sorry, well, he's going to be at 11 health. But there's going to be something that's going to survive on this board. So that means a Leroy Jenkins pickup from EdwardElric combined with the Soulfire will end the game. He's actually going to take some more damage, so he's going to be at 9.
I mean, this is do or die now for EdwardElric. He's got a window of opportunity here. And
One
this
window.
is it.
That's not it.
That's not it.
Still another chance.
Hidden Ritual. I mean, that's still a pretty strong reload, though. This is 5 juggles.
Yeah, thing is, though, with this, he can't play the Soulfire to try and challenge the board a little bit more. You can see him mousing over, trying to find which ones have the skull, which ones are alive.
Wow, takes out both the 2 health minions, pushes Handsomeguy to 7. Here's that 10-10.
Pretty solid.
But you know what? EdwardElric is at 16. And that Knife Juggler, I mean, I imagine you're taking out the Knife Juggler here. Yep. It goes down. And EdwardElric, he's got 6 damage on board, but he has to get through the taunt first. Power Overwhelming gets picked up. How much damage is that? He's a little bit off.
Yeah, he's going to be a little bit off, but what he can do is deal with this Ancient of War and push Handsomeguy down to a point where he's within Leroy range. Okay, so
he's going to tap, and I think Leroy would have been lethal there, actually. Yeah, it would have been.
Would have been. Yeah, that's right.
So Power Overwhelming. Going to get right through this this Ancient of War here. And again, that was Handsomeguy's last taunt. And EdwardElric is still at 14. He's free to push damage here. Handsomeguy needs another taunt or a swipe or something. This is... I mean, he's dropping to 3.
Yeah. Absolutely has to. There's a
swipe! My, that is a huge draw right now.
That's the... I don't even know if huge is the right term for it. I think that's the best draw in his deck. Otherwise, he'd be dead. He needed a taunt or swipe, and a taunt still would have been vulnerable to being traded off on this board. So he's going to get the swipe. And Mirekeeper as well is going to summon a 2-2, so it's going to be a full board clear. And a little bit missequencing from Handsomeguy.
Wow, uses the swipe first. That makes that Councilman a 3-1. And look at Handsomeguy. I mean, that affects his clock. He'd have been able to kill the 1-1, kill the Darkshire Councilman, and have 10 damage on board. Now instead, he's got 9. EdwardElric's not dead unless he life taps. And he draws Forbidden Ritual. Just Forbidden Ritual. Go.
Yeah, you have to. You tap, you're dead. Unless you pick up exactly where he's going for it.
Tap. I can't believe it. And the defender
he tapped
of
himself
Argus
to death. He's going to use all his mana. If he uses Forbidden Ritual, you can't do it.
Wow. EdwardElric goes for the lethal, and Handsomeguy, despite not keeping extra minion around with that Darkshire Council that he could have drawn, and I think that's what caused EdwardElric to go for that tap, and so it's going to be Shaman versus Zoo. Handsomeguy looking to solidify his spot at BlizzCon, and he's got 2 chances to do it.
Yeah, and if I had to pick any deck in the game where I would want 2 chances to win a game, it would be an aggro Shaman, and that's exactly what Handsomeguy has. Nothing fancy about this one. It's just a good old classic aggressive Shaman.
Yeah, good pickup for EdwardElric with that Possessed Villager. Will allow him to kind of use this more freely. Honestly, I'm eyeing that Power Overwhelming against that Tunnel Trog. That is one of the scariest minions in the Shaman deck, and Zoo does an excellent job of keeping the board restricted and trying to punish these early game plays. So here we go, 2 1-1s on board. And Handsomeguy gonna struggle to find ways to get on board. He's looking to build that thing from below. And EdwardElric's gonna try to stop that at every opportunity. Dark Peddler filling out his curve right now. We'll see what he ends up drawing. And you can see how much Handsomeguy values
having the board presence, going to coin Rockbiter to take out a 1-1.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty cool play because what's a turn 3 play that you'd make? A turn 3 play would be something like an Imp Gang Boss. Well, next turn he's got Flame Tongue Totem plus Abusive Sergeant to challenge something like that. And he actually can deal with the Darkshire Council with Flame Tongue and Lightning Bolt, and his Healing Totem survives.
Yeah, could also do it with that Abusive Sergeant if you wanted to. Multiple options on how to do it now. So Flame Tongue Totem, I think, is representing the most value here, is that Healing Totem's going to heal right back up, and maybe considering that Rockbiter. I like the Rockbiter here because that'll allow him to play Thing from Below next turn. So not having that massive burst potential with Doomhammer and Rockbiter anymore, but that's not what this matchup is about. This matchup is about taking the board away from the aggressive Warlock deck.
Yeah. EdwardElric once again presented with Soulfire and Possessed Villager as two of his options, and goes with the Possessed Villager. He did have the opportunity to use Soulfire to take out this Flame Tongue Totem, but Power Overwhelming in his hand already is going to do the same thing.
That's the second one.
So can Handsomeguy stabilize from this point? 4 power on board.
Well, Think from Below is going to be the start of this. And currently, EdwardElric does not have a way to push through the Thing from Below.
Do you think from below? There's also merit to using Abusive Sergeant and Lightning Bolt, and using your hero power to start trading up, whittling down the board, and making that Thing from Below cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is a major consideration here. And so we've seen Handsomeguy look towards his instinct every single time, and when he's got a good play, but he's got other plays available, this is when he slows down.
Yeah.
And it's so critical right now. I mean, they mean two very different things.
Yeah, so if he totems up this turn, Abusive Sergeant Lightning Bolt, he overloads for 1, so he'd be at 4 mana, and Think from Below would go down to 3 mana. Next turn, he could hero power again and Think from Below for 2 mana, so that lets him fit in his hero powers. To him, he gets Searing Totem or Stoneclaw Totem to challenge the board, and at the same time, he removes more from the board and is proactive with his cards.
Yep.
I'm actually leaning towards that one.
My only debate here
Whoa.
Whoa, this is really interesting. So this will be Abusive Sergeant. I mean, it's kind of the same line here. He's looking like he wants to delay the Thing from Below just a little bit longer.
Yeah, get it out for free maybe, push it out for a little bit cheaper than 4 mana.
Yep.
Might be the play.
You can see how much he's valuing his options here at this point. I mean, he's seen both Power Overwhelmings at this point, and I think that's a big argument for going for the Thing from Below here. But given that 2 Power Overwhelmings are gone, he knows that he can also just take it slower.
Yeah. And EdwardElric picks up 2 cards, Runner, that don't help him right now. Handsomeguys at 28 health.
Yep, that Healing Totem has been going to town, TJ. Yeah, I mean, having Leroy and Soulfire at the same time.
And a Sea Giant.
This could be disaster.
Consecutive, very poor draws from EdwardElric.
Yeah, doesn't have an option but to use that Soulfire. He's got to stop that action.
And so the Healing Totem gets isolated at this point, but now look at the hand from Handsomeguy. He's got so many ways to keep this board at bay. And he's going with the minions from hand at this point. He says, you know what, I've invested in that hero power enough. I've gotten the value from my Flame Tongue Totems. Now's the time to turn up the heat. And so Sea Giant going to be the play here, but that Lightning Bolt in hand's going to be able to take it out. And so EdwardElric's going to have to rely on that life tap to build to a big point.
Whoa.
Darkshire Councilman could be one of those cards that helps, but it's going to be tapped first. Knows that Thing from Below could just run it over.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the consideration here. He had the opportunity to play Darkshire Councilman plus Sea Giant to try and spread out his threats a little bit, but yeah, it's definitely the fact that it gets challenged by the Thing from Below. Tuskar Totemic.
Great draw for Handsomeguy.
He sits up in his chair. He's like, oh man.
Flame Tongue Totem, Mana Tide Totem, and Totem Golem all available. If he gets one of the basic ones, you know, even the taunt one is looking mighty good right now.
Yeah, we'll see what he gets.
Here we go.
That's
And
a Flame
it's
Tongue.
Flame Tongue.
And EdwardElric just,
He drops his head. I mean, this is a really tough spot for him. Handsomeguy may have completely taken over this board at this point.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and just clear off the Sea Giant. He doesn't want to take any risks in leaving that alive, and he has the title in his sights.
This is so close right now. I mean, debating whether or not the damage of the Divine Shield's worth more, I think it's worth more for your opponent than it is for you right now. You know, when we see players get this far ahead, I think about kind of watching Kalento play. He likes to choke out his opponent's opportunity to even get back in the game. What's that 1 damage worth right now? And so Handsomeguy, I think he realizes that the Divine Shield could be a potential way for EdwardElric to get back in. Trades it off, and that Flame Imp is not a big help right now. Just really no utility left in the deck for EdwardElric. He's used both Power Overwhelmings. His Soulfire's gone. He's down the Leroy. I think this is lights out.
He's going to try and make the strongest board that he possibly can and see what happens from there. But Handsomeguy with another Tuskar Totemic is going to be able to make this Flame Tongue Totem give him so much mileage. And
the
this is actually
positioning is so important.
A lot of combat math to do here as well, trying to figure out the best way to trade off this board and place the Tuskar Totemic.
Yeah. So first trade is done. Looks like he doesn't necessarily want to use his healing totem here.
Yeah. It looks like he wants to place it, maybe it's either far left or I think right to the right of the healing totem.
Yeah, I like the far left on it.
Totem Golem!
Wow, I think this one's done, TJ.
When it rains, it pours.
Indeed
when it
it
comes
does.
to Aggro Shaman.
Yeah, because it's going to trade off that Spell Power Totem on the far right. See which one he gets and evaluate it. On this one, it's another Spell Power Totem to replace it. Takes care of the Darkshire Councilman, and here comes the damage push. Defender of Argus cannot take care of that thing from below right now.
He's going to have just a few more
16
draws here
damage
left.
on board for EdwardElric. There's an Abusive Sergeant to take care of that thing from below, but I think he's just too far behind. He has no way to win, and he's going to scoop it up, and Handsomeguy is going to win the Asia-Pacific Hearthstone Spring Championship.
What an impressive performance.